In today's journey, we are bottling the 1 gallon WinExpert Cabernet Sauvignon. We'll also find out how long it will take for Phil to make a fool of himself. Here you can see we've already gathered up all of our tools we'll be needing. Affiliate links in the description. The day starts, of course, with some sanitization. Something that will make your day easier is to put Star San in a squirt bottle so you can just spray down anything. This includes countertops and other items and equipment that you may touch during the process. Although properly sanitizing something like an auto siphon and bottling wand, it's best to let the sanitizer run through it, just as the wine would. But with everything pre-sanitized, we put the auto siphon all the way to the bottom, pull the cane gently all the way to the top, wait a moment, then give one solid push to start the transfer. You will want to keep an eye on where the end of your hose is at this point, as excessive splashing or squirting can lead to aeration of the wine. And if you see small amounts of sediment transferring over, don't worry too much and just let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes before you do the actual bottling, and that will allow the larger chunks to filter out, thus leaving them behind when we finish the bottling. It actually wouldn't be out of the norm for a larger wine batch to get a tertiary or an additional clarification process to avoid such sediment. But on 1 gallon kits, it can be a little tricky because the amount lost during each transfer impacts the final batch a lot more. Because this kit only makes about 4 bottles of wine already, limiting the amount of loss is really important. And we slow down the speed up just in time so that you can watch Phil's first blunder. Because he wasn't paying close enough attention to the wine level, he allowed the auto siphon to run dry, meaning that he needed to re-pump it to get it going again, leading to incorporating a little bit of oxygen. It's not the end of the world, it just means that there's some room for improvement. The use of a small amount of potassium metabisulfite wouldn't be a bad idea at this point, given his blunder, or if we intended to age these for longer than 6 months. But since we don't, we won't. And we now move directly on to bottling. Conveniently, we have a hook in the sky for just such an occasion. When you do your first batch, you kind of have to guess and check how you're going to exactly position everything. But once you have a facility that you work in on a regular basis, you get to set up these fancier systems that work just to your needs. For example, notice how the bottling wand just hangs there and doesn't actually touch the table. If this is your first time bottling, just remember that gravity is our friend here, as is the bottling wand. Both are going to do the hard work, so you don't have to. But definitely the unsung hero is the Portuguese floor corker. If you plan to do a lot of wine, definitely get one. Unless you like every time you make wine to be an upper arm workout. The other thing that doesn't hurt to have around on bottling day is an extra set of hands. That way they can do the corking while you do the filling. If you do find yourself having to do this by yourself though, we recommend doing it in batches. Fill up to 12 bottles at once and then cork them all at once. That way you're not stopping and going every 5 seconds. And speaking of stopping and going, we've been using our time manipulation throughout this video, but it took us about 8 minutes to do the bottling from start to finish once everything was sanitized. And for those that mock those that do 1 gallon batches, they take a lot less time. There's less money into invest. So the margin of error doesn't matter as much if something goes wrong. The hobby in itself is supposed to be the act of making it, not necessarily drinking it. In my days of working at a homebrew supply shop, it wasn't that uncommon for somebody to make beer or wine for loved ones, but not necessarily drink it themselves. A large number of them were interested in the science of fermentation, but not necessarily in the effects that the alcohol would have on them. And although we both enjoy the science and the drinking, we can still respect those that don't. We also respect those that fill their wine into bottles that aren't wine bottles, although we prefer it if they pour out all the sanitizer first. But then again, if it's not a wine bottle, is it still a bottle of wine? Or does wine merely have the power to turn any bottle into a wine bottle? That's for you to decide. But we have decided that basically anything that's designed to hold beer is fine for wine. Kegs is a little different because you want to avoid carbonating the wine while they're in there, but it's not unheard of for a bar to serve their house wine from a keg. Not even the weirdest thing I've sold a keg to go do. And alternative bottles are another great way to avoid the corker altogether. And now you can see why we always use a floor corker instead of the easy double lever corker. It's a fine product, we just recommend using smaller corks with that one. And we haven't been able to get the synthetic corks to work with those ones either. And we prefer synthetic corks. Better for aging. But who am I kidding? I'm gonna let these age for 3 months and hand them out to my friends. But if it looks like we came up short, that's because you forgot about the beer wine. Kind of like what we did. So it's been stashed away in a corner since day one, and we kind of forgot about it, so no secondary or clarification happened to this bottle. That clearly hasn't stopped Phil from giving it a try, to which he said that it was pretty good actually, a little gritty because it hasn't been properly processed, but he thinks we should give this a try in a full video, so maybe next time. But we're going to give it a little bit more time to peer review before we do anything drastic. But that's the fun of 1 gallon batches. You can experiment without any fear. But what we fear the most is success. And to make that nightmare come true, click that support link for information on how you can help us for free or to donate directly. But the best way, as always, is to remember to like, comment, and subscribe.